Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Timothy McKnight.
Welcome, everybody, to week 12. It feels like summer now, at least here in Ohio. The weather's beautiful, it's warm, and we've completed 12 weeks. It's been pretty intense, and I hope you've learned a lot. Tonight, my goal is to show you how much you have learned, and then also take an opportunity to highlight some of the key take-home points that I hope that you got from our last 12 weeks. So I really wish we could be together in person. I'd like to congratulate each of you personally and be able to see you and hear from you. So we'll do the best that we can with what we've got and hopefully have a good evening together. So we're going to do a recap here. And with week 1, we talked about the wellness crisis. And, we're really faced with a crisis that continues to get worse. We're just surrounded by disease. A poverty in health, a poverty in thought, a poverty of our emotional states. Many relationships are suffering for many reasons. And so it's kind of like the frog that jumps in the pan of cold water that slowly starts to heat up, and before you know it, the frog's boiling and doesn't realize it's happening. So I think that's kind of what it's like for many of us to live in a time when there's so much disease prevalent in every area. When we talked about the key points of week 1, we talked about the things that kill us, the epidemic diseases that seem to be spiraling out of control, and then our crisis response. So you should know by now the leading cause of death in the United States is heart disease, and followed closely by cancer. And then we have this list. Now, this is from the National Vital Statistics report, but I also gave you some evidence that the third leading cause of death is not COPD, that it's a different cause, that we often won't see this because most of the death certificates, the National Vital Statistics reports are based on death certificates that providers like myself sign. And so we're not going to sign off on this third leading cause of death. And I'll come back to that in a minute. This slide is really important because it tells us that many of these diseases, these chronic diseases that many of us are a victim of, that in the majority of cases, these are preventable or avoidable diseases. Diabetes, 91% preventable. Cancer of the colon is 71% preventable. So that should make us start to think different, that no, we don't necessarily have to develop these diseases and suffer the consequences. So the leading causes of death: heart disease, cancer, and hopefully you remember that with the other studies that we have, the third leading cause of death is medical care. And primarily it's due to the use of polypharmacy. More than 4 medications is considered polypharmacy. If you take more than 4 prescription medications, you're taking a lot of medications that start to interact with each other, that cause other side effects. All of these will cause some type of a nutritional strain or a nutritional deficiency. So we really, really need to be careful about this approach in allopathic medicine, that every problem is fixed with pharmaceutical drugs. So we talked again about the mechanism and the approach to heart disease and to cancer. And we talked about metabolic syndrome, which is what happens when you get a big gut. These are many of the consequences that evolve with our biochemistry when our guts become big. And it's not just the fat on the outside, it's the fat on the inside, this visceral fat that's so inflammatory that puts us at risk for diabetes and hypertension, high cholesterol, gout, heart disease, gallstones, and some cancers, especially cancers in women of the ovaries, breast, and uterus. We talked about the obesity map. I showed you that map, how we're continuing to rise in our obesity rates. And this is an old slide, but I couldn't find one that compared the rising trends in obesity with the rising trends in diabetes, anything more current than 2007. But certainly these increases continue to parallel each other. And it's believed that by 2050, if we continue the current rates of obesity, that everyone in America will be obese. That's not not what we want. And I don't believe this will happen because I think there's plenty of people that are motivated, like you guys have been, to be proactive and to make sure that you're not a victim of the environment that you live in. So we have these external approaches, and I think trying to fix things externally is wrong when the problems really are internal, whether it's internal biochemistry changes that cause disease, or it's our thought processes, our emotional states, or our relationships. All of these have an impact on our health. In week 2, we talked about mindfulness, and this is becoming aware of our thought processes. And being aware of our behaviors, really being honest with ourselves. And sometimes this is hard to do, but we have to be able to do that. We have to see ourselves for who we are, and but not be too critical on ourselves to the point where we're judgmental and we're down on ourselves and we beat ourselves up. It's just about becoming aware. We talked about the origin of behavior and how critical it is in this age of 2 to 6 and toddlers, from the age of 2 to 6, when they're predominantly in the theta wavelength form. They download every message that they hear over and over again, and it becomes part of their belief systems. It forms their self-esteem and how they feel about themselves and the world they live in. And this is highly programmable. And it's powerful because there's no questioning. When you're told something about yourself at this age over and over again, you believe it, and you wire your nerves together to make an automatic connection or an automatic wiring system. The point of this slide, though, is that we can change the way we're wired by changing our behaviors. We showed you these slides to help you look at the fact that probably most of the time what we think we see as reality is just our perception of it. And often what we're looking for and where we're looking is what determines what we see. So if we're looking for reasons why we can't lose weight, and we're looking for reasons why we can't improve our health and why arthritis is getting worse, we're going to find those reasons. But if we're looking for solutions, we're looking for hope, we're looking for healing, and we make that our focus, then we will find answers that will help us change the course of our lives and the course of our health. Can you be honest with yourself? This requires that we listen to the messages of our mind and our body and realize that they often talk to each other. And fasting is a great exercise to help us learn to listen to both, because we really want to have willpower over what our stomach is telling us. Just because the stomach is growling and telling us that we're hungry doesn't mean we have to listen to that message. And hopefully by now, you know that the signal that causes that is this hormone in the brain called ghrelin, Ghrelin. Ghrelin makes your stomach growl. If you eat high carbohydrate diets, your stomach is going to growl because ghrelin is going to be skyrocketing. As you start suppressing that urge to eat, the impact of this neurotransmitter ghrelin, or this hormone, becomes less and less as the levels drop more and more until you don't feel that urge to eat. That comes with a low carb diet and intermittent fasting. And many of you have commented how effective this has been and how easy it gets once you lose your appetite. And again, that's cutting the carb intake down and starting to skip meals, and challenge yourself to skip not 2 meals, but maybe 3 or 4 or 5 meals. And you'll see that your drive to eat is less and less. That's being honest with yourself and listening to your body and being the master of your body. Meditation and quiet reflection are also other excellent ways to become more aware of how we think, feel, behave, and how we interact with others. So week 3 was about intentional healing. It was about changing the wiring system in our brain so that we can do things intentionally and not automatically by habit. So we talked about all the different ways this happens. And we mentioned that that nature teaches us these lessons. The first lesson is balance and harmony. And I gave you examples. And we've talked about this for several weeks when we talk about the bicep muscle contracting and the antagonistic muscle on the back of the bicep, the tricep, has to relax. That's another perfect example of balance and harmony. When we talk about back pain and upper or lower cross syndrome, we're talking about the balance and harmony of muscles that oppose each other. They have to be balanced. We have to have balance in our lives. We also have to have order and sequence. anything we do has to be prioritized. We have to start with whatever we feel is the best place for us, whether we tackle the most difficult habit first or the easiest habit first. You have to sit and quietly reflect and think, what's going to work for me? What do I feel inspired to do? And how do I start this process of changing my behavior? And then we talked about independence and interdependence. And interdependence is really where we find that sweet spot in life. This is powerful when we have healthy relationships that allow us to be interdependent, that allow us to be close to family members and friends and coworkers. And when we work together and everybody does their role and does it well, then great things can be accomplished. And there's a powerful feeling that comes with that. It's a tangible feeling that has to be there if you really want to heal at the highest levels. We talked about the biology of belief and changing the way our brain wires itself. And hopefully, let me go back to the biology of belief. The image that I want you to think about when we talk about this is the signature, your signature, that John Hancock signature. That's what I should have on this slide. And the point of your signature when we did this exercise is to start a new habit is difficult. It takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of focus, a lot of energy. And there's a lot of self-judgment and criticism because our first efforts are not usually very successful and they don't look pretty. But as we continue to work at it and not give up, it gets easier and easier to string together a couple really good days of eating. It gets easier and easier to string together a few days of exercise and of healing relationships. But you're going to have setbacks along the way, just like you would in learning to write your name with your non-dominant hand. But the more you do this, the more automatic this becomes until it's an effortless process. Oops, I'm going back the wrong direction. Let me go back here. This is something I came across just this weekend. I thought I had to share this with you. This book is a fascinating book. I just got it in the mail yesterday, and it's based on this study in 1978 done by Robert Nerum. And they were looking to establish the relationship between high cholesterol levels in the blood and heart disease. This is something we've been doing for years. And you should know now that I don't think that correlation is necessarily a strong correlation. But this was something that they were doing back in the 70s. And they were using rabbits because rabbits are a really good model for what happens in our arteries. When rabbits eat high-fat foods and greasy foods, their arteries change just like humans. So it's a really good model to look at the development of heart disease. And when they fed these rabbits these high-fat diets, they all developed high cholesterol levels, just as you would anticipate. And these are high cholesterol levels in the blood. But when they looked at their arteries and they looked at their vasculature, one group of rabbits had 60% fewer cholesterol deposits than all other groups. And this was a mystery to the authors of the study. How could that be? These animals were genetically the same. They were all given the same food, but in one group, the cholesterol deposits were much, much, much less. So why is that? When they had the same genes and they had the same diet? Well, if we go back to that term that we've talked about before, epigenetics, that says it's the environment that dictates what changes in our biochemistry. The question is, how did the environment change for the rabbits in this group? When the authors step back and look at the environmental changes, they notice something really interesting with a powerful message. What they noticed was in this particular group, there was a postdoctoral fellow who was the kindest, sweetest person. And unlike the other individuals who had taken care of the rabbits and basically just throwing rabbit chow in the cage every day, this woman would not only feed the rabbits, but she would pick them up. She would talk to them. She would cuddle them. She would love them. And what they found is that this proves that kindness could impact physiology. And they were not convinced that this was a real phenomenon. So they repeated the study again and kept this woman as part of the study. And again, in the second study, her group of rabbits had virtually no cardiovascular disease, no atherosclerotic plaque, even though they were exposed to the same genetic predisposition and to the same dietary treatments. So this tells us that that kindness is a powerful trigger for healing our physiology. And doesn't that make sense? This message of love is powerful. Love is healing. And love is the message of the Bible. It's the message of Christianity. And the master healer was teaching this in the Bible and telling us that we need to assume these characteristics. And now we have a study that's proved that that kindness can make a difference. So the name of this book, there was a follow-up, an explanation to the results of this study back in 1978, is called Live Longer, Happier, and Healthier with the Groundbreaking Science of Kindness. So I just picked it up. I'm going to continue to read it. But the initial study that prompted the writing this book, to me, fascinated me. And I thought maybe I should share this with you. Okay, week 4, we really talked about nutrition and disease, and particularly foods that cause us to get sick. So we started by reviewing your blood work. One of the blood tests that we did not do was the vitamin D level. We didn't measure this, but I would encourage you to have your vitamin D3 level measured. If your vitamin D3 level is less than 50, you need to replace it. And I would confidently say that about 90% of you are less than 30, which puts you probably in the deficient range. So you need to be supplementing with vitamin D. We talked about the role of diet and nutrition in these diseases. So all of these is deep diseases. You can read them here: erectile dysfunction, premenstrual tension syndrome, uterine fibroids. All these diseases have a link to the wrong foods in our diet. And so if we want to try to reverse these diseases or keep them under control, our first approach should not be medication. It should be a strict adherence to a diet that can heal our chemistry. So these are some of the foods that we sneak every now and then, and we say, well, I don't eat that many cookies. I don't eat hamburgers and fries that often. But when you start looking at what we're doing and you're honest with yourself, maybe you're eating those more than you think you are. And so the two consequences here I'm trying to depict with these images are cancer and heart disease, and then also diabetes. So we talked about these 4 keys to our declining health. Enriched flour. You should know by now what enriched flour means. It means it's flour that's deficient in micronutrients. It means that it was an act of Congress that said we're going to add back 4 or 5 of the vitamins and minerals that we stripped out in the milling process of the flour, but the rest of them were never added back. And so this leads to many of the micronutrient deficiencies we have, including low magnesium and low zinc levels and low selenium levels. You should know that high fructose corn syrup is not found in nature, that it increases our insulin, which causes us to make fat. It increases our feeding center, which makes us want to eat more because it increases that hormone ghrelin to make us feel like we're on a feeding frenzy. High fructose corn syrup is the primary reason for the obesity epidemic in the United States, and it will continue to be used because it's economical, it's cheap, and it's perfect for the food manufacturing industry. You should know that hydrogenated or trans fats are also not found in nature, that the chemistry of these molecules is a man-made change in the chemistry of fatty acids that we see nowhere else on the planet, yet we change these fatty acids and we try to insert them into our cell membranes, and it alters the way our cells communicate, it alters biochemistry, and it puts us at risk for heart disease and some cancers. And then you should also realize that in America in particular, we just supersize our meals. We eat way too many calories, and most of those calories are from carbs and fatty foods. We showed you what heart disease looks like. We showed you the healthy heart, the bypass heart, and the congestive heart failure heart. And hopefully you were able to see that in the heart specimen that we demonstrated for you, that these venous grafts are not really what nature intends us to have. This is the arterial graft. These grafts hold well because it's replacing the role of an artery. But when we make a vein replace an artery, it doesn't hold well. And often these venous grafts will become occluded with clot or thrombus. And then we don't have the blood flow bypass that we thought we did. This is a healthy, smooth inner lining of a blood vessels, the aorta. This is an atherosclerotic plaque-laden artery that's full of cholesterol deposits, calcium deposits causing the hardening of the arteries, and it just occludes the flow of blood flow anywhere it goes. And the question is, can this be reversed? Once you've got this, can you reverse it back to this? Well, Dean Ornish and Caldwell Esselstyn will say, yes, you can reverse this. We've got evidence that we can do this, but it requires a very strict vegetarian diet to do it. And I have not been advocating that strict vegetarian diet, but I certainly think we can improve and reverse this to a certain degree if we stick with the diet that we've talked about the last 12 weeks. Week 5 was about the foods that help us heal. It's pretty simple. It's the foods in the produce section of the store. When we eat them raw or we steam them as much as we can, and we fill up our plate as often as we can with at least half of our plate looking like it's a vegetable or a fruit, we're on the right track. We also talked about water. We talked about supplements. We talked about oxidative stress, which is the vehicle of chronic inflammation. And we explained to you what a free radical was. It's an unpaired electron. And these unpaired electrons are the beginning of the development of inflammatory conditions like heart disease and metabolic syndrome, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and all these other diseases, as well as it is the beginnings reaction for cancer to develop. So taking an antioxidant, which is allowing us to absorb these free radicals and neutralize the free radicals, is the remedy for this. And of course, these free radicals are found in the produce section of the store. They're loaded with polyphenols and other antioxidants that stop this nuclear reaction that happens all the time in our cells. So the foods that heal are vegetables, particularly green leafy vegetables, but we also want a full rainbow of colors. We want a variety, yellow, green, red, and white vegetables. We want fruits, especially the berry families, which are foods because they're very high in antioxidants, they're low in sugar. And beans and whole grains and nuts and seeds. This is where we get healthy fats, fiber, and protein. We talked about healing water. Our water should be free of chlorine and other environmental contaminants. It should have a pH that's neutral or slightly alkaline because that is the pH of our body. Most of our body is slightly alkaline. Healing water should have a negative oxidation reduction potential, meaning it holds a charge that acts like an antioxidant. And I shared with you a video of the water that I drink that's rich in hydrogen gas that gives it this property. Easy to measure this with an oxidation reduction potential meter. Unfortunately, you can't store this for a long time because this gas dissipates. So you've got to drink it as quickly as you can. Usually right out of the machine is best. But if not, you can store it for a day or two before you've lost most of the properties of the antioxidant character of the water. Then we talked about supplements. And remember, supplements don't mean substitutes. They mean they supplement those foods that you get from the produce section of the store. So I've listed all the different supplements we talked about. We talked about antioxidants. And these are some of the antioxidants that I mentioned: CoQ10, lipoic acid, fish and flaxseed oils, and turmeric. What I've done is I've put in a dark blue font those supplements that I personally recommend that we all take every day. I did not mean to mark vitamin E. Vitamin E could be taken for those of you with heart disease, maybe 400 units a day. But otherwise, most of us don't really need vitamin E if we're eating plenty of those fruits and vegetables from the produce section. But selenium, magnesium, and zinc, these are common mineral and trace element deficiencies. Many of us are right on the edge of being deficient in these. A B complex, all of us need to take a B complex. We all need some vitamin C. We all need at least 5,000 units of vitamin D. and turmeric is my antioxidant of choice. The most important thing about supplements is don't get them at a discount chain. Don't get them at the cheapest store you can find them. Do your homework and make an investment. Fortunately, though, we have the NutriScriptive line of supplements that Mako's Market and Pharmacy carries, and they're excellent. They're very high quality at a reasonable price, and Mako's has been very generous to discount that price even further. So they're making less of a profit than they could to help the community, and we really appreciate their efforts. You can also buy these supplements directly from the vendor. You can go to mqrx.com or nutriscriptives.com, and you'll find their whole line of supplements there. Some of you might have other brands that you like. My advice, again, is to make an investment. Don't look for the cheap brands because they're probably not going to work for you. So here's just a list of my keys to nutritional healing. I'm not going to read these, but this is meant as a reference. So this is like in summary of all those foods and those dietary approaches that will help you heal from whatever condition you're struggling with. And this is the image. I've shown you this several times. I want this to be etched in your brain. When you look at your plate, when you have food in your hand or on a fork, these are the types of foods that you should be eating most of the time. And then if you, once or twice a week, if you want to sneak in something that's processed or not necessarily healthy for you, it's not going to hurt your biochemistry to do that. But this is what you should see most of the time. Week 6 was called Eat to Live. And this is just reminding us that it's not so much about the cholesterol level, it's about inflammation. The more important point I want to make here is that our body can change quickly with food. So many of us started Fit for Life not eating the best foods. And we're starting to, for a couple of days, you might be eating really well. Even though you might not see the results that you're looking for on the scale, I want you to understand that your biochemistry changes quickly. If you're eating inflammatory foods, the lining of your arteries is going to look like this. It's going to be basically naked. You don't have that. We call this a glycocalyx. And this can go in reverse within 8 hours. It takes up to 8 hours to heal this problem, to go back to this. But if you eat those foods we're talking about, your body is going to start healing on the inside at the microscopic level. So you have to trust it. You have to appreciate it. You have to love it. And you have to be patient with it because it will manifest those changes in a short period of time. We also talked about leaky gut and how these inflammatory foods, again, quickly change the lining of the gut so you don't have the healthy lining of the gut where a good absorption occurs. And what happens in leaky gut is when the gut gets injured like this, we injure the glue or the mortar between cells that holds them and seals them off. We start to leak proteins into the blood, and the body sees these proteins and causes further inflammation. This leads to increased intestinal permeability and deficiency of the mucosal lining. It causes pathogens or disease-causing agents, toxins, and food particles to sneak into the bloodstream. And when the immune system sees that, it goes into overdrive with an overabundance of inflammatory responses, leading to many of the autoimmune diseases that we have, whether it's IBS, irritable bowel, or eczema, or asthma, or diarrhea, or constipation, or headaches. It can lead to thyroid disorders, fibromyalgia, colitis, and even rheumatoid arthritis. So how would I treat rheumatoid arthritis? Well, I would not use those powerful disease-modifying agents that we see the rheumatologists use. I would heal my gut first. And how do I heal my gut? I present my gut with what nature wants it to eat. I eliminate those things that are toxic to the gut. I try to eat the cleanest foods that I can, the best water that I can drink. And I try to keep my bowel movements regular, and the gut will heal. We've seen autistic children reverse their autism by healing the gut. It's so simple, and I just want you to understand that your body will respond to this if you continue and you persist. So when we're eating to live, again, we're giving you images that should make you, should appeal to your eye, but also more importantly to your gut. Remember, for every one cell in your body, you have 6 bacteria, and most of those bacteria are in your gut. This is what the gut craves. These are the food the gut bacteria crave. And when you make those bacteria healthy and balanced, when there's an order and sequence, where you find them in the gut, and when they work together interdependently. See, this comes right back to those three messages. These bacteria are healthy. They will protect the intestinal lining. They'll allow you to extract all the nutrients from the foods that nature wants you to have. So this is simply a matter of just executing this plan to eat this way. So we have a change in our food pyramid, because you don't see on the base here, you don't see 6 to 11 starch servings a day, which is inflammatory to the gut. You see all anti-inflammatory foods. You see foods up here that have healthy fats and oils and good carbohydrates and fiber and a little bit of starch, and then the berry family and a little bit of fruit, and then small amounts of animal proteins. This is the food pyramid that I suggest that you try to follow as much as you can. We talked about the right amounts of foods, and you can measure these out in these different illustrations. But the idea is, if we go back to week 2, where I had you eat some fruit by putting in your mouth and one small bite and putting your fork down, in fact, almost out of reach, so you can focus on chewing that till it goes down like applesauce. You'll find that you don't have to eat a lot. You'll be satisfied within 20 minutes of a meal that you've slowed down to enjoy, that you've slowed down to really digest well, and that you're going to extract all the nutrition from it that nature wants us to have. We talked about the right combinations, and this is kind of a dated slide. It's just showing you to kind of break these foods up. But I want to ask you, what do you think is wrong with this image? Because this isn't really what I taught you. This is what I used to teach. I taught a different approach for most of you trying to lose weight. And hopefully you know what I'm talking about. I'll come back to it. We talked about the right times. If you eat breakfast, then you want a well-balanced breakfast. You want a light lunch. But again, this is a little bit misleading, because this is not consistent with the message that I shared with you in week 6. When we talk about weight loss, you have to understand there are a lot of hormones that have to be addressed to lose weight. This is what most of you are trying to get out of the program. How do I lose weight? Many of you have done phenomenal. The reason it's worked for you is you've been able to manipulate these key hormones. Insulin is the most important. How do you low insulin? You do intermittent fasting and you eat a low-carb diet. Those of you who have done this have been successful. Cortisol is a stress hormone. You release it when you have stress. If you have chronic stress day after day after day, if this has just been a bad stretch for you the last 12 weeks for whatever reason, it's going to make it harder to lose weight. So we have to manage stress better. And remember, most of the time, stress is a story that we write about the situations that we find ourselves in. Now, sometimes things happen out of our control, but often we're in a situation and we just write this story that it's going to be so much worse, and we spend so much time worrying about it and losing sleep over it that it becomes even more stressful than it needs to be. Ghrelin is the hormone that makes your stomach growl. It makes you feel hungry. You can stop that hormone from acting in your brain by low-carb diet and intermittent fasting. Leptin is the hormone that makes you feel full, makes you feel satisfied. The more you fast, the more leptin you will make, and the less of a desire you'll have to eat food. Thyroid, when it's low, especially the free T3, it's associated with a slower metabolic rate. All of you should know what your free T3 level was, and all of you should ideally have a free T3 level greater than 3.5. If you've got hypothyroid symptoms or symptoms of low thyroid with a free T3 that's less than 3 for sure, you really should take thyroid replacement to help your metabolism. And then for menopausal and perimenopausal women, and for men in andropause, which is that time in life in their 50s and 60s when they start getting the bigger gut and they lose their libido, the problem is most of the time testosterone and estrogen. So women, when you gain weight at menopause, it has nothing to do with your diet, nothing to do with your exercise patterns. It has everything to do with decline in estrogen. So with that being said, you should understand it should be automatic to lose weight around the middle that comes on at menopause. You need estrogen. You need the right amount of estrogen to do that. But you also have to be eating intermittent fasting and low-carb diet if you really want it to work. Those two, insulin and estrogen, for women are the most important for weight loss. For men, the most important is testosterone and insulin. And then other suggestions for weight loss. Again, we have to reduce our intake of sugar. We have to reduce the consumption of refined grains. We need to eat moderate amounts of protein, not too much or too little. And most of us should eat more fats, particularly olive oil and avocado and nuts and seeds. We need to increase our fiber also. And we should target our carb intake to about 50, should be grams, not milligrams, 50 grams a day. 25 to 75 grams a day would be the range that most of you will find success in and be able to not feel too deprived with this type of a diet. So what was lacking in those other slides that was really not correct with weight loss? It's the idea of intermittent fasting. When you eat like that chart showed you, like 5 short meals a day, what you're doing every time you eat is you're spiking your insulin level up. And you should know, so this is a breakfast, this is a mid-morning snack with the insulin spiking here, then it spikes at lunch, and there's another snack and another spike. Every time the insulin level is above this line, your body's in the fat-making mode. This is even though it's maybe healthy food, when the insulin level goes up, you're making fat. And when you're making insulin, you're also increasing your ghrelin hormone, which is going to make your stomach growl and make you feel hungry. We want to spend more time here with the insulin levels actually being very low and going down. So this is what fasting does. When you're only eating once a day or for a 6-hour window, when you finish that 6 hours period of time, the insulin level is dropping. And you can see the net effect here is all this time when the insulin level is low, this is when you're going to start burning fat. This is when you're going to have an increase in that hormone leptin that makes you feel like you don't need to eat. And that's exactly what you want. If you love cookies and you love bread and you love potatoes, you can overcome that by intermittent fasting, because you'll start losing weight and this hormone leptin is going to make you feel satisfied and you won't even crave it anymore. And those of you who have been successful, I know you could give us an amen on this point, because it really does work. We also need to increase our dietary fiber. We've talked about this. Week 7 was making sense of food labels. And we gave you some examples from this whole grain basic 4 cereal. Hopefully you referred back to that from time to time. These are the food label elements. And most of the detective work, there's 2 places where I look. One is the ingredient list, because it's by weight, most prevalent by weight. You're looking for anything with carbs or sugar. And the other is the carbohydrates section, because the more carbohydrates you have in a serving, the more you're going to struggle with your weight, because it will elevate your insulin levels. This is a perfect slide to kind of pull this all together. A simple food, Italian white bread, tastes good on a sandwich, tastes good in a toaster as toast. But as you look at the ingredient list, you see enriched wheat flour, which should mean the word starts with a D. It's not enriched, it's deficient. They have added back to this deficient bread niacin, iron, thiamine, and riboflavin, and folic acid because of the Enrichment Act. But everything else has been left out. So this is going to be very low in magnesium. It's going to be low in selenium, low in zinc, low in molybdenum, and on and on and on. The second most prevalent ingredient by weight is water, and then followed by high fructose corn syrup. So this is going to give this bread a slightly sweet taste. More importantly, it's going to raise your insulin levels and make you even more hungry for bread. Then it's made with partially hydrogenated soybean oil. And where do you find hydrogenated soybean oil? You don't find it anywhere. You find it in a laboratory. You're changing chemistry. This is going to be incorporated into your cells and change the way the cells communicate. So these are a summary of the 4 changes in our diet that have led to increasing obesity, metabolic syndrome, heart disease, putting us at risk for cancer, and high blood pressure and high cholesterol. So this is not a food that's going to kill you, but hopefully you should understand that when you eat these foods, 2 or 3 pieces of this bread, even on toast or as a peanut butter sandwich, is going to make you crave more. And you're going to be deficient in nutrients. You're going to make fat, and you're going to be putting hydrogenated fat into your body, which is a no-no. Then we switched to flexibility and fitness. We watched Coach Hartzell's demonstration. We talked about flexibility principles. We talked about stretching muscles and ligaments and how important that was. And we have to learn to do that, especially as we get older. I played basketball today, and I've had 2 sessions of massage therapy on my calf muscles and my Achilles because they're tight and they're sore. And I was barely able to finish today on the court because they're so tight. Now, I could take the easy way out and say, well, I got Achilles tendonitis, I can't play basketball. But if I get massage treatment on them and I treat the problem and I break up the adhesions with an uncomfortable but an effective treatment, I can continue to do the things that I enjoy doing. So we have to address these things and not just say, well, I'm too old for that anymore. I don't know when I'm going to stop playing basketball. I expect to still be playing with 25 and 30-year-olds when I'm 70. I may not be able to keep up with them, but I expect to be able to at least compete at some level. We talked about rehabilitation principles, that blood flow is what heals. When you hurt, the worst thing you can do is lay down on the couch all day and wait for your body to heal. It will stiffen up. Your muscles will stiffen up. Your joints will stiffen up. You'll have more joint pain, more muscle tightness, more pain all over. We have to restore the normal pain-free range of motion of all of our joints. That requires some stretching. That requires maybe either massage or chiropractic treatment. If you don't want to do that, fine, but you're not going to heal. You're not going to move like you want. And I guarantee you, your arthritis in your back, your knees, your hips, your shoulders is going to feel worse. You're going to complain. You're not going to be satisfied with the allopathic approach, which is some type of pain medicine, maybe a joint injection, and you're left as a powerless victim of a situation that you really have great control over. Coach Hartzell talked about traction therapy, which is a great way to help this joint pain. We talked about compression therapy, wrapping those joints up. I did both. I actually sat in my office today with a wrap around my right calf for about 15 minutes, as tight as I could get it. Then I took it off and I stretched the calf and the Achilles. We definitely want to avoid restricting a sprained ankle. One of the guys I was playing with today sprained his ankle pretty bad. He got up, was able to walk, but I told him, you should walk on it, and you should practice balance exercises. But for the next 4 to 6 weeks, you need a lace-up brace to protect you from rolling that ankle again, because you've already stretched and partially torn the ligaments in the ankle. You got to let it heal, but you definitely don't want to put it in an air cast, because that's going to take away your balance, and it's going to make things more stiff and more painful. So please do not immobilize a sprain. That clearly is going to make you hurt more. Rest is for the deceased. There will be time for that. There'll be time for all of us later for that type of rest. And ice is for your drinks, not your joints. I firmly believe that. I don't think you're going to hurt your joints by putting ice on it, but there's no evidence that ice does anything long-term to restore arthritic joints or injuries to the muscles and tendons and ligaments and the bones themselves. Then we talked about cardiovascular fitness, that it looks different for different people. There's all these benefits to exercise, which you should all be aware of. This is self-explanatory. How much? Well, this is one example, just walking 65 minutes a day for 6 days a week. If you can get to that point, great. If the best you can do right now is 3 days a week for 15 minutes, then let that be where you are and see if you can push that to 20 minutes. We talked about the heart rate zones, and hopefully you've all done the calculations in your workbook to know where your heart rate should be for you at the age you are right now, to be in either the anaerobic zone, the aerobic zone, or the fat burning zone. And I'm hoping that you have an idea for what that feels like when you're in these different zones. How do you feel with your breathing, your muscles, and your overall cardiovascular health? So walking is a great starting point, and maybe that's all many of you ever really want to accomplish with your cardiovascular fitness. But when you go to interval training, and interval training means you're at a very high intensity. This is the anaerobic zone where you can't get oxygen. If you've been cleared medically, this can help you increase your metabolic rate because it increases the mitochondria in your cells, and mitochondria burns fat very effectively. So this is like a supercharged weight loss approach if you can do this 2 or 3 times a week for 20 minutes. We talked about strength, fitness, and back pain, and different ways to develop the strength fitness. We talked about what happens with muscle loss and why it happens, why most of us by the time we're 50, we're starting to see that muscle loss. And these are some of the reasons why. Then we talked about restricted blood flow therapy as a way to build up muscle. And the concept started from Yoshiaki Sato from Japan. It's called the Katsu training protocol. And it means pressure. And we started using this in 2012 as therapy for soldiers with limb-threatening injuries. And what you do is you put these bands on your arms or your thighs up high, and you restrict the blood flow. You don't stop the blood flow. You just slow it down a little bit. So I did this today at the gym, and I could barely stick my finger under the band in my arm, but I was able to get it under there. I could still feel my pulse. My hand wasn't turning white or purple, but it was a pretty snug fit, and I kept it on for about 30 minutes. So you do a lot of lightweight repetitions, and the point is you're getting blood to your muscles, and your muscles are fatiguing because they're not getting enough arterial flow. And what happens is your body adapts to this type of stress by making brain-derived neurotrophin factor. It's a brain fertilizer, so your cognitive function can improve with restricted band therapy. Your muscle growth will be enhanced because you're blocking this neurotransmitter that blocks the muscles from growing. You're going to have more stem cell stimulation, so your muscles will heal faster. Your ligaments might even heal. Those cartilage areas in the joints of the knees and in the spine, those could start to have more stem cell production. So maybe your back pain improves. Maybe your torn meniscus starts to feel better. You have more vascular endothelial growth factor being secreted from this training protocol, which helps blood flow everywhere. And blood flow is what heals us. And you also increase nitric oxide production. Men, when you do this, you might find that the days that you wear these bands really hard and for 30 minutes, that the quality of your nighttime erections change. So this is a great training protocol that all of you could consider, but please don't wear it too tight. You still have to maintain your pulse. This can be dangerous if you do it too tight. And if you're not sure about it, then don't do it. I want you to know that age is a number that we define what it means. So we've got this 43-year-old woman, this woman at 64 who looks like she's in her early 30s. We've got Ernestine Shepard at 81 with six-pack abs and looking fit. And we've got Jeff Life at 70 looking like he's 30. This is what can happen to us if we commit to a healthy lifestyle and we commit to keeping our muscles toned. We talked about the muscle groups that should be exercised, the upper body, lower body, and the core muscles. Dr. Jakubowski talked about spine health, that we have to move the spine. If we stop moving the spine, it'll freeze together. The calcium will start to fuse together and the bones will be stiff. And then everything we do is going to be a stiff movement. So movement is key. We talked about this very common condition that I'm going to guess most of you have at some degree. Sitting at this posture for too long. I saw a 31-year-old gentleman today, very fit guy, who already has this condition because of the sitting that he's doing now. I watched him perform in high school. He was an amazing athlete. And, 15 years later, he's got upper cross syndrome from sitting too much. So we went over this. This has to do with these tight muscles in the middle of our back. It has to do with the deep muscles of our necks not being used. They're weak, they're inhibited. It has to do with the lower trap muscles not being used right down through here, and our heads being bent forward and using the sternocleidomastoid muscle. That's the muscle on your neck here that when you turn your head, you can feel it. When your head is down, that gets really tight. And then you're overworking these erector muscles in your back, which is where this gentleman was having pain. My erector muscles right now are starting to fatigue and cramp because my hip flexor muscles continue to be tight. So we kind of went over all this. So what did I do for this today? In anticipation of my back being stiff tonight, I did lunges today, and my buttocks is fatigued. It will be sore for the next couple of days, but it will help me. The same thing happens in the upper back. This can cause tension headaches. We talked about some exercises for this, holding weights and letting this pull down and stretch these muscles that we usually elevate because we sit too tense. If you do this maneuver, you lay flat and you tuck your chin to your chest and you lift your head off the surface of the floor just an inch or two. If your head starts to shake, you have weak muscles in this region of your neck because you had poor posture, like the guy sitting at the table. It's a great screening test to see if you've got upper cross syndrome. We talked about other ways to stretch the low back. This is a stretch. I have this same ball right there in the corner of my office, and I was on it 3 times today and 2 times in the gym doing this particular stretch in the upper right-hand corner because my posture is just the opposite as I sit all day at a small workstation. This is an exercise where you reach up and pull straight back to tighten the muscles of the lower trap to help you correct the weakness that's generated from sitting too long. And this is a way to stretch the chest muscles that get tight when your hands are forward on a keyboard all day. So these are simple things that we can all do. If you want to have good posture as you age, you really need to start doing these things. Here's some other exercises for the low back muscle. This is an exercise that I need right now because these muscles are tight. This is called the cat camel. You look down to your belly button, and then you slowly reach down and put your heels on your buttocks on your heels, or go down as far as you can, and you'll feel it pull and stretch right in these muscles that are so tight from standing. These are other ways to stretch the muscle here, and other ways to strengthen the core muscles of the abdomen. Okay, and this was the maneuver I did today. Stretch those hip flexors and stand up and activate the gluteal muscles so you get a stretch and a strengthening exercise that's perfect. When you do this exercise, don't lean forward with your upper body. Don't have it up here because there's no stretch in the hip flexor. Try to keep your body nice and upright because that'll really stretch this really well. Take a big step forward so your knee is in line with your ankle. If you take a short step forward and your toe's right here and your knee is ahead of your toe, that's going to hurt the knee. That's a bad position to be in. Okay, we've kind of beat that one. We talked about pain, and pain is a sign that something is wrong. Get to the root cause. Get to the root cause of all of your medical conditions. Find somebody to help you get to the root cause so you feel empowered and you know what to do to fix it. Had I not done that, I'm sure I would be having injections in my back by now, and probably for the last 10 years, I would not be active doing things. I'd feel pretty hopeless and I'd have a lot of pain. But I've addressed these root causes, and I've been able to keep going and not be slowed down by the arthritis pains that I have from time to time. Last week, we talked about disease prevention and healthy aging. So we talked about preventing heart disease, which we've talked about before. We talked about the 5 major risk factors. We talked about some of the minor risk factors. We talked about cancer and its linked to oxidative stress. And the remedy is eating raw produce as much as we can, and good water and quality supplements. We talked about screening tests. I mentioned that the PSA is not a screening test that's recommended for men for prostate cancer. We're still recommending the rectal exam for men over the age of 50. But I personally think it's better to do the PSA blood test because it can pick up an early cancer that a short finger, in my case, would miss because I can't feel that nodule. A colonoscopy is something all of us should have starting at the age of 50, unless there's a strong family history in your family, and then you would start much sooner. Women, absolutely critical that you start your mammograms at the age of 40. I would recommend every year from the time you're 40 until you're 70, and then you decide with your healthcare provider after that how often you get them. Pap smears are important also. We talked about immunizations, and I didn't spend too much time on it because this can be a controversial topic, and I have some of my own biases that I didn't want to sway you with. But I did mention, and I didn't talk about the COVID vaccine. I'll tell you, there's some people feel very comfortable and they feel safe having it, and other people feel very reluctant, and they worry about side effects, and they worry about the fact that it's an experimental drug or an experimental treatment. We have no low long-term studies on. I think what I want to say here is that we have to respect each other and not make this a divisive issue or topic, because we're all doing the best we can with information that's very nebulous. It seems to be changing, and many of us are very scared about COVID because things that we've seen or we've heard. So this is a struggle for all of us, and I'm sure at some point it'll be sorted out, and we'll know where what the best remedy is in terms of vaccines and treatment. We talked about the role of hormones a lot. I spend a lot of time on this because this is a favorite topic, but also because it's so crucial to any of you over 50 to maintaining good health and feeling good. As we age, our hormone levels decline, and we feel the effects of that. At distinct and critical, there are distinct and critical differences between synthetic and bioidentical hormones. Bioidentical hormones, I don't know how to say this any more clear. They do not cause cancer. They do not cause blood clots. They do not cause strokes and heart attack. They just don't do it. If we give you too much of these natural hormones that your body makes, you won't feel good. But it's not going to cause you to die from cancer. Now, you're going to hear different messaging, and most of your other medical providers are going to disagree with this. But I'm confident what I'm saying. I've spent the last 15 years studying this, attending courses, and practicing hormone replacement therapy. For those of you who are interested and would like to see me, I'd be happy to help you with it. Those of you who are afraid of it, then certainly don't go against your thoughts and emotions about this particular topic, because I don't want to try to persuade you. You have to be comfortable with it if you're going to do it. These hormones can control the symptoms of PMS, menopause, and male menopause. We talked about when we age, all the different factors that cause us to feel like we're getting older. A lot of this has to do with the decline in the steroid hormones, a decline in thyroid, but it also has to do with the quality of our sleep, poor nutrition, too much stress, and a lack of exercise. So when you feel old, it's probably one or a combination of all of these factors that makes you feel old. But it doesn't mean you have to accelerate the aging process. You can still live a very robust, active life if you address the deficiencies and the imbalances in your body. The difference between bioidentical and synthetic hormones is pretty simple. A synthetic hormone has a molecular structure that's not identical to the body's. It has a lot of side effects, and these can cause problems. It can be patented because we've created a new molecule. So there's a profit to be made, and there's going to be marketing to be used. If you're worried about hormones, the only hormone that you really should worry about is Prempro. Prempro, we know, causes an increased risk of breast cancer, stroke, and blood clots, and heart attacks. Don't take Prempro. You can still take Premarin and Provera, but why take something that's synthetic, that's similar to your body's, not identical? Why not take what your body has always made for you, women, and have the benefits of it without paying the price? This is a depiction of how our hormone levels decline over time, and this curve should look different. It should stay pretty high for a long time before it slowly starts to decline. We talked about why our hormones are imbalanced. Why is this an issue? I thought God made women to have menopause when they're 55, and men just start feeling older when they're 60. Why are we interfering with what nature intended? Well, because nature did not intend us to be exposed to all these different environmental toxins that impair our ability to make hormones. So we have all the new cleaners and products on the market. We have pesticides on the foods that we eat. We have pollution in the air. We have plastics that we're exposed to, all the different estrogen-like compounds in the plastics when they heat up. And then we have an abundance of foods that cause many of these hormonal imbalances. So this is the reason, primarily foods is the reason why so many women have PMS. It's the reason why women have fibroid tumors that bleed and bleed and bleed until they finally get their hysterectomy. These are the reasons why men have low testosterone levels. Again, a 31-year-old guy I saw the other day in the office with low testosterone. I told him, I said, you should be at the peak. If you were a professional athlete, you'd be at the peak of your game right now with high testosterone levels. But his levels are low. And we can't really remove the effects of it, but we can certainly supplement up to where he'll feel good again and his health will follow. This is just one example of toxicity from a chemical called glyphosate. This is found in Roundup. And I know we talked about this, but I'm just showing you all the different studies that have showed that just this one chemical that was not in our environment 60 years ago, that we are exposed to, almost all of us, on a daily basis because of the foods we eat. And there's all kinds of bad effects here: DNA damage, cell toxic, cell death, cell damage, anti-estrogenic, anti-androgenic, which is anti-testosterone. So study after study after study says we're exposed to an environment that really has an impact on genetic expression and how we feel with our hormonal balance. We talked about chemical structure mattering, and I showed you these three chemicals that are very similar but have slight changes, but their outcomes and their impact on the body are completely different. And then we compare that with natural human estradiol that causes women to ovulate, makes them look like women, keeps their skin soft and smooth, protects their bones, protects their arteries, protects their brain, is good for their eyes and their teeth and their hair, allows them to have vaginal secretions when they need to, allows them to have control over their bladder. This is a perfect molecule. But when you go into menopause and you start having symptoms of deficiency, well, you can replace this. This is the molecule I would give you. But some people will give you this molecule and this molecule, and they're not quite the same. Many times the body assumes that it's the same and will give you a fair response in a lot of those symptoms, but it won't help all of the symptoms. This is your natural progesterone. This is unnatural or synthetic progesterone. These dark circles are what makes this molecule different from this. Why would you want to put this in your body when we can give you this and your body says, oh, I know what that is. I had a lot of that when I was pregnant. I've been pregnant 3 times and I felt really good when I had progesterone, and it was protecting my breast from breast cancer, and it made me feel good hormonally. It made me feel happy. It made me feel less irritable. Why not give them this molecule that helps with those things rather than this one, which probably won't help with those symptoms? Then we talk about testosterone for men and women doing all these good things. Lowers your risk of dementia, gives you more energy, improves your libido, helps you lose fat around the belly. We talked about some of the levels. Now, and I've shown you the normal levels for women and the optimal levels, and the same for men and women. So men, if you have a testosterone level of 51, this is the free testosterone, the unbound testosterone. And your doctor says, well, your testosterone level is fine because you fall in the normal range. If they tell you that, they don't know what they're talking about. You don't want to be in the normal range. You want to be high normal. You want to be where you would have been in your 20s and 30s when you felt good. 50 is the level of a 90-year-old man. So my father was, many of you know, my father was in the hospital recently. He had a bad urinary infection, laid on his back for 5 days. I didn't think he was going to recover. I gave him 2 weeks to live. He recovered from the infection. We brought him to our hospital, and it was kind of odd. I got to admit him and discharge him both because I knew his history very well. I knew he was struggling. He was weak. He wasn't thinking clear. He couldn't carry on a conversation. He couldn't do the normal things that he was doing 2 months ago. I checked his testosterone level, his free testosterone level. What do you think that tells me about my father's need for testosterone? 6.2, when 50 to 200 is normal, but 170 to 200 is optimal. So what do you think I did? I gave him a shot of testosterone the last 2 Fridays. And what's he doing today? He walked into the Great Clips to get his hair cut. He was flat on his back 2 or 3 weeks ago. I gave him 2 weeks to live. And now he's feeding himself. He's getting his hair cut. He's back home. His strength, his stamina, his mind, everything it's not completely normal. It's not where we'd love it to be, but it's so much better than it was. He's back to where he was a year ago. And this low testosterone was one of the reasons. So when we talk about health and wellness optimized, this is the summary of all the things we've addressed at Fit for Life, as well as those reading assignments that you did at home, those behavior modification challenges to look at your behaviors and your actions, to look at the quality of your thoughts, the impact of your emotions on your decisions and behaviors, and the quality of relationships. Hopefully, all of you read those take-home reading assignments in the workbook. Maybe it was a little fluffy, and it wasn't intended to give you busy work. It was intended to help you understand how important all these areas are and how you have to address them if you want to heal at the deepest levels. We could have given you the same content, but said nothing about the role of relationships. And what did I start with earlier on in the lecture? Kindness. Kindness heals. You need to be in nurturing, loving relationships if you want to heal your physiology. It says so right here, the science of kindness. So this is all powerful, and it all ties in. I hope now that you've seen 12 weeks, you see how this all ties together and how important it is to look at the whole person. So healing in perspective, we talk about hormones and supplements and rest and stress management and exercise, but there's this big area here that you have to address if you want to heal your biochemistry. And hopefully you know what the word should be to go into this major portion of this pie, and that is food. Food is what heals. Now, we can't overlook the power of behaviors, thoughts, emotions, and relationships. But when we're talking about chemistry, food is what heals us by far more than anything else. Yet that's probably the hardest for most of us to do. So again, you can still have those taboo foods every now and then, but make them on rare occasions. Make them a reward for something, and don't overeat when you eat them, and allow your body to heal. And don't be too upset if you have a couple of bad days, because we're all going to have those bad days. So final thoughts. It's time for you to raise the bar. William Bell at 82 was pole vaulting 8 feet 6 inches, which is the height of a ceiling in most homes. At 90, we watched him set the world record for his age at 7 feet 2 inches. You have now gone on a 12-week journey, and you set a goal for yourselves, and you got somewhere. You either reach that goal or you approach that goal. But now, with the whole picture in mind, it's time to go back, sit back, reflect, and decide, okay, where do I want to be in 12 more weeks? Now that I understand how all this works together, where's my next goal going to be? You are going to have days just like an airplane where you're not quite headed in the right direction. When my father was, he was a pilot for the little planes, and he was a pilot instructor. He let me fly his little Cherokee Cessna. I think it's Cherokee. It was a Cherokee single engine plane once, and I was amazed at how often I was blown off course. He said, keep this altitude, keep this heading, and this is where you want to try to focus all of your maneuvering on these two needles to keep them where they are now. And I was constantly being blown off course. There was winds, and we were going up and down, and it wasn't like it was a roller coaster, but I certainly wasn't keeping on course. I would not be the pilot with that amount of training to get you to your destination in a timely manner. But the point is you are going to set out for a destination, a goal, and you're going to be heading in the right direction, and then you're going to be off course. You're going to have 3 or 4 days. I did really well until Easter, and I knew I was going to cheat a little bit on Easter, but I cheated more than I wanted. And then I cheated a little bit yesterday. I cheated less today. Those kind of things happen. We have to forgive ourselves. We have to move on, and we just keep trying. And we have a clear vision of where we want to get to, and we never give up. We've quoted Thomas Edison before, but wouldn't it be wonderful if if more of our allopathic doctors were more interested in not only treating disease, but looking at the root cause of the disease and preventing it. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we were paid for preventing disease, which I think is the approach that they have in Japan with their healthcare system. And Hippocrates, 390 BC, this is beautiful. This is simple. Food is our medicine. And medicine, let medicine be your food. You can take a bag full of pills every day and not have your disease reversed and spend a lot of money and have side effects and be frustrated and not get better. Or you can have a bag full of raw vegetables as your primary food source, and you can watch your body heal. Sometimes to heal, it doesn't feel the same. It doesn't taste the same. You can't indulge as much if you're trying to heal. If you cannot control that urge to indulge, then don't expect to heal. Don't expect to have reduction in pain. Don't expect to have energy. So don't place those demands on your medical provider when you're not getting better and you're not willing to make those changes. So all creation begins with a thought. So my question for you now is, what are you creating? This small little seed is, you can see this, it's less than a centimeter, and a centimeter is about well, there's 2.5 centimeters in an inch. So this is several seeds, very small. If you take this little seed and you nurture it and you patiently wait for it to sprout, you won't see anything initially because the roots are setting deep into the soil. It's extracting nutrients from this very fertile ground that you have to fertilize. You fertilize your gut with healthy foods. You fertilize your body with healthy foods. You fertilize your thoughts with healthy thoughts, and you heal your emotions, and you fertilize your relationships of love and forgiveness and kindness with others. If you do all those things, you'll start to see signs of some small changes. And if you patiently persist in that process, just as in this little seed, you'll see that one day you will be the great redwood tree in a symbolic manner. These trees don't grow like this over, in a short period of time. It takes patience, it takes love, it takes nurturing. But hopefully you've all started to have the experience where you're getting excited about the changes you've seen, the way you're feeling, the thoughts that you have, the emotions that you have, the relationships that I hope are healing, and the changes in your body. Because if you continue to do the things we've talked about a little bit each day, you will find that you are a new person with an exciting future. So this is our last class, but it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning of your healing. You have all the tools, you have updated information, you have the latest information. I find some of the most interesting studies that I get excited about that I hope have helped you heal and made you feel more comfortable that you're on the right track. We will continue to post for you on the Facebook page information. We hope you'll continue to be a part of it. You'll support each other like you have. You've been wonderful. And we just want to thank you for being a part of this and staying engaged with you each week. So I'm going to pause there, try to get out of the slide deck, and then I'm going to have Kelly come up, and we're going to talk about a couple other things. Okay, Kelly, I think you're up. You stand right there. You should be able to see everything.
I'm a little shorter than you. Good evening, everyone. This is the time in the class that we get excited to announce who the biggest loser is through the 12 weeks and who the biggest percentage of body fat loser is. Sometimes it's the same person, sometimes it's two different people. But this class, we have the same person that wins the biggest loser, and that's Eric Schneider. He lost 27.8 pounds, and he also lost 11.2% of his body weight. So he did a really great job. Congratulations, Eric. We also want to recognize some folks that have lost more than 5% of their body weight during our class. And those folks are Dawn DeFallow. She lost 25.8 pounds. Bennett Triplet lost 17.2 pounds. Debbie Angel lost 14.8 pounds. Sue Waddle lost 14.4 pounds. Michelle Sagalski lost 13 pounds, and Rick Mako lost 12 pounds. So congratulations to all of you. We do have another recognition that we want to do, and that's the person who was the most encouraging and supportive participant that you guys have voted in. So I'll let Dr. McKnight read that one for you. Keep on the Facebook page, and it was nice working with everyone.
Okay, am I going to do these other ones too, Kelly?
If you want.
Okay. So our most encouraging participant was, it was said about them that this person posted a lot of good material on Facebook and asked really good questions. They also have given a lot of support and are always there to help everyone. They've been a huge supporter of Fit for Life and have they've made themselves available to help with measurement sessions and anything else the program has needed for many years. So you probably, many of you will know who this is. This is Debbie Angel. So Debbie, thanks again for being an inspiration and a support to the program. I hope you know how much we appreciate you, and your classmates do as well. If I wish you could all hear the applause, Debbie, because this is a standing ovation you're getting. Then we had some participants who shared with us their feelings about their experience. So I'll just read those briefly. I'm not going to read the names of the individuals because I don't want to embarrass anybody, but some nice comments and some comments that I think your classmates should hear. I really like the concept of intermittent fasting. It amazes me still how it stifles the appetite. We appreciate Kelly and all the assignments that arrange the class, the assistants that arrange the class every week. The interaction with Facebook group has been enjoyed. My A1C, HDL, and triglycerides were all greatly affected. My blood work was very impressive this time. Hopefully we'll see you in September. So thank you for that comment. You know who you are. I know who you are, and I appreciate it. Another participant said that they wanted to thank Kelly and myself for all of our help. This person focused on carbs as the answer and will carry the advice forward to maintain their weight. The sessions were very informative and made me realize what a complicated system the body is and how important it is to pay attention to it. So I hope we hear from you again, the person who wrote this. I hope we get an update, and maybe you share your update on the Facebook page in a couple weeks or a month as you continue to focus on the low carb diet and intermittent fasting, because I think you'll get the results that you're anticipating. Another class member said, I really like the classes. There's so much information, and it made me more aware of my stress patterns and what I need to do to fix it. Dr. McKnight made the class helpful. Kelly and Debbie were such a great support to me. They were always there for me. Thank you so much. I'll be back in the fall class. And we love seeing you come back. So that's exciting for us, and we're happy for you. And then the last one said they just wanted to thank the Fit for Life class, which has been a wonderful experience. Up until 3 years ago, I had always tried to maintain a fairly healthy weight. These were the things that I could control when it came to my blood pressures and kidney disease. I had an unforeseen health problem that took me off my game. Truth be told, I kind of used it as an excuse to let my health go even further. Now that I've been given the go-ahead this past 6 months, I decided to change that. I was slowly doing things that I remembered how to do and saw some effect. Dr. McKnight is a colleague of mine, and I decided to give this program a try. I must say I've been pleasantly surprised with the entire process. I've always had some baseline knowledge, but had trouble tying things all together. This holistic approach resonated with me, and I tried my best. I've been able to stay around the 2 pounds per week weight loss since I started. I started out a little over 248 pounds, and I'm down to 220 pounds. This feels different than before because it's sustainable. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in your program. I enjoyed every minute of it. Congratulations to everyone in our winter online class. So congratulations to all of you, and thank you for your feedback and comments. Again, it's so hard not being able to talk to you in person and have you share your thoughts with your classmates. But please use the format in the Facebook page to, if you want to share your successes or experiences. I think it's an easy way to do that if you feel comfortable. Do you want to say something else, Kelly?
Yeah, we had one more comment. My biggest takeaways was the intermittent fasting, the quality supplements, stretching, the importance of bioidentical hormones. And we do have one last question. When using the training bands, can that help old injuries?
Depends on what the old injuries are. My Achilles tendonitis and my calf pain, it probably isn't going to heal that too much because I have to stretch those, and I have to probably modify some of my physical activities until it heals. But the point is it can create more blood flow. It can cause stem cells to start healing and start building up tissues that have been injured. So I can't promise you that it will help those old injuries. But if there's two things I would do to heal an old injury, I would do the band therapy, and the second thing I would do is I would see Dr. Jacobowski or a chiropractor or a massage therapist that can get in and really break up those adhesions and scar tissues that form in the tendons, ligaments, and muscles from repetitive type of injuries that are just chronic over time, just that chronic inflammation. So again, we've got some great people that could help you. Dr. Jacobowski would be a great resource for you. For those of you who are here in the area, if you're out of the area, find a chiropractor you trust. Active release therapy is what Dr. Jacobowski does. That's an elective that some chiropractors take in their training, and he does an excellent job with it. So I'm not going to get too emotional about this because I expect to see many of you again, and I expect to see some of your comments, and we'll continue to be able to interact through our Facebook Live page. So thank you again for joining us and sticking with this. I'm just worried that these presentations were too long, but I do appreciate the fact that most of you are watching them and are being benefited by them. So we'll look forward to seeing you again, and we'll start a new fall class in September. And if you're interested, contact Kelly, and she'll give you the date and times for that next class. So best of luck to all of you. Stay healthy. Have a great summer. Stay active. Try to keep moving and do the best you can to nourish your body and your soul. So God bless all of you.